Welcome to session 8, comparing and contrasting. Now we'll have a look at exam technique. So the aims and objectives of this session are to examine how comparing and contrasting text is used in the exam. We'll examine the methods of comparing and contrasting text, and examine the language used to compare and contrast. The objective: to use a graphic organiser to compare two items. To identify correct language for comparing and contrasting. In the exam paper, you will be asked to consider the views of two or more different people. You may be asked to compare and contrast them with the claims made by a company or just with each other. Depending on where you're standing, the viewpoint can be very different. For example, in one exam, it looked at the different experiences of two people who visited a hotel for a Christmas meal. It asked you to compare their views with the hotel's claims that it was the best venue to choose. Who would you believe? Why would you need to be careful? That's right, you're relying on personal opinion. And these opinions can be very biased, especially from the hotel's point of view, as they're trying to persuade you to use their services. It's all about balance. It's important to make sure that you balance the information that you give about the items that you're comparing and contrasting. That means giving them equal time in what you write. There are three strategies to organise comparison and contrast questions. First one is whole to whole, block. The second one, similarities to differences. Third one, point by point. So the first one, whole to whole. In this structure you say everything about one item and then everything about the other. Explain what you've been asked to compare. State everything about item 1. State everything about item 2. Write a conclusion which explains the similarities and differences between the two items. The second one, similarities to differences. In this structure explain all of the similarities about the items being compared and then explain all of the differences. So start off, explain what you've been asked to compare. State all of the similarities between both items. State all of the differences between both items. Then write your conclusion. And the third one, point by point. In this structure you explain one point of comparison before moving on to the next. So explain what you've been asked to compare. State the first point and explain how items are similar or different. Do this for all the points between both items. Then write your conclusion. To help you do this, we use transition words. So in comparing and contrasting, there are transition words. They tell the reader that the writer is changing from talking about one item to the other. Pause the video and have a read of these words to compare. You may like to make a list. Pause the video and make a list of these words to contrast. We can also use graphic organisers. These are very useful tools for gathering details about the items that you're comparing and contrasting. You could use a Venn diagram, or you could use a chart or perhaps a list. Let's have a go. In this activity we're going to compare nests and houses. How would you compare nests and houses? Pause the video and draw yourself a Venn diagram like this one. In this part, how is a nest different to a house? In this part, how is a house different to a nest? And then finally, what is the same? Pause the video while you do this. Now let's have a look. How did you do? So how is a nest different to a house? A nest is small. It only has one room and does not have a roof. It is used by birds. How is a house different to a nest? A house is bigger than a nest. They have a roof and usually more than one room. They are used by humans. And finally, What is the same? They both provide shelter. They both can be made of wood. And they both take up space. How did you do? Activity 2. Read through the paragraph. Write down any clue words that describe comparing or contrasting. Pause the video while you do this. Let's have a look at the answer. All the words highlighted in red are comparing or contrasting words. Let's have a look at the exam style questions. On Moodle, look in the Compare and Contrast resource folder. In there you will find the source document, which is an adapted past paper. Answer the 2 compare and contrast questions. If you prefer to work from a paper source material, ask your tutor for a copy. You may handwrite or word process your answers. So let's have a look at the aims and objectives of this session. Can you now explain how comparing and contrasting text is used in the exam? Have you examined the methods of comparing and contrasting text? Have you examined the language used to compare and contrast? And did we meet our objective? Did you use a graphic organiser to compare 2 items? Did you identify the correct language for comparing and contrasting? Remember, if you still have questions or need help, please ask me in class or email me.